The world in 1914 was a tinderbox of alliances and rivalries. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in Sarajevo provided the spark. Austria-Hungary, backed by Germany, issued an ultimatum to Serbia. Serbia's partial acceptance led Austria-Hungary to declare war. A complex web of alliances swung into action. Russia began mobilization. Germany declared war on Russia on August 1st. France was drawn into the conflict. Germany's invasion of Belgium brought Great Britain into the war. Within a week, Europe was at war, leading to a grim and protracted conflict. By the end of 1914, the war on the Western Front had devolved into a brutal stalemate. The German advance had been halted at the Battle of the Marne, and both sides dug into elaborate trench systems that stretched for hundreds of miles across France and Belgium. The trenches became a nightmarish world of mud, rats, disease, and the constant threat of artillery bombardment and enemy attack. Millions of men would be locked in this deadly stalemate for years to come. While the Western Front became synonymous with trench warfare, the conflict raged on multiple fronts across the globe. The Eastern Front, spanning the vast expanse of Eastern Europe, saw more fluid but equally brutal fighting between German and Austro-Hungarian forces against the Russian army. In the Middle East, the Ottoman Empire, allied with the Central Powers, battled the British and their allies for control of strategically vital regions. Naval battles raged across the seas as Germany attempted to break the British blockade that strangled its supply lines. Colonial troops from Africa, Asia, and the Pacific were drawn into the conflict, adding to the global scale and human cost of the war. The world was truly engulfed in a conflict of unprecedented scope and intensity. World War I witnessed horrifying innovations in warfare technology, forever changing the face of battle. The machine gun, already in existence but greatly improved during this period, became a brutally efficient killing machine, mowing down waves of attacking soldiers. Artillery, too, reached new levels of destructive power, capable of raining down high explosive shells on enemy positions from miles away. Chemical weapons, a terrifying new addition to the arsenal of war, were first used on a large scale in 1915. Chlorine gas, mustard gas, and other deadly agents unleashed agonizing deaths and horrific injuries, adding a new dimension of terror to the battlefield. The skies, too, became a battleground as airplanes were used for reconnaissance, bombing raids, and aerial combat for the first time in history. The development of submarines, while not new, brought a deadly new dimension to naval warfare, as German U-boats targeted enemy ships, including civilian liners. Technological advancements, initially hailed as signs of progress, were now being used to wage war on an industrial scale, with devastating consequences. Section 4, 1917, a year of upheaval. The year 1917 proved to be a turning point in the war, marked by significant events that would alter the course of the conflict. In Russia, years of mounting internal tensions, exacerbated by the strains of war, culminated in the Russian Revolution. The Tsarist regime was overthrown, and Russia, racked by internal strife, eventually signed a peace treaty with Germany, ending its involvement in the war. The withdrawal of Russia from the conflict was a major victory for the Central Powers, but it was offset by the entry of the United States into the war on the side of the Allies. Angered by German submarine attacks on American ships, and swayed by growing public opinion in favor of intervention, the United States declared war on Germany in April 1917. The entry of the United States into the war in 1917 provided a much-needed boost to the Allied forces. The arrival of fresh American troops and resources on the Western Front in 1918 would prove crucial in turning the tide against Germany and its allies. However, the war was far from over, and the coming year would bring even greater bloodshed and loss of life before the guns finally fell silent. Section 5, the staggering human cost. By 1918, the world had become numb to the casualty figures that emerged from the battlefields. Millions of lives had been lost in the relentless fighting, and entire generations of young men had been decimated. The total number of casualties in World War I is estimated to be over 40 million, with over 16 million military personnel and millions of civilians dead. The war had left an indelible scar on the world's psyche. The horrors of trench warfare, the use of chemical weapons, and the sheer scale of the carnage left millions physically and emotionally shattered. Families were torn apart, economies were devastated, and the political landscape of Europe was irrevocably altered. Millions of lives were lost during World War I, leaving an indelible scar on the world. The world in 1918 was a much different place than it had been just 4 years earlier. The old order had been swept away, and a new era marked by uncertainty and the shadow of war was dawning. Section 6. 1918. The end of an era. The year 1918 witnessed the final throes of the First World War. Despite early German offensives, the tide turned decisively in favor of the Allies. Fresh American troops tipped the balance of power. By fall, Germany's allies began to crumble. The Ottoman Empire signed an armistice in October, followed by Austria-Hungary in early November. Germany sought an armistice with the Allies. The armistice on November 11th ended the fighting. The world had been irrevocably changed. Make sure to like and subscribe.